Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. So I'm hoping this video doesn't get cut short because we're about to get a storm again. Imagine that, more rain. It's kind of sprinkling a little bit. You might be able to hear the thunder above. But we're going to try to give you a quick video about clipping boxwoods and maybe even dividing a hosta. If you're enjoying my video, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel, even hit the notification bell if you are enjoying my videos and want to get notified anytime a new video comes out. Alright, so when I start pruning my boxwoods, I like to wait until about this time of year when they start looking a little bit fluffy. You can see there's lots of nice light new growth on this boxwood, and so I typically use a pair of small scissor type shears as well as these. Some people might use longer ones. I just happen to find these to be the right size for me. I am a little bit smaller, so you might like longer ones. Some people hold their shears like this. I tend to like to hold mine like this. It's a little bit more ergonomic. It doesn't pull my wrists down like this, and it also curves really nicely with the shape of the boxwood. Now, I'm not going to take a ton off. I do like to shape mine into nice balls. And so I'll just kind of demonstrate. These are pretty new, so I don't have to worry about there being a lot of old growth on here, where sometimes the boxwood can get a little bit dense, and then you have to do some very special trimming. So I probably won't need to use my small clippers on this one. But as you can see, I just like to clip off a little bit around the sides and the top, and again, the nice curve of the blade kind of lends itself to the shape of the ball. And then as I move, I just go around the side. Same thing on this side, just kind of trimming it back. All right, let's hit the next one, right next door. So if you wait until now, you have very soft foliage. It's nice, the foliage cuts very well. And any gaps that you see initially, like you might be like, oh no, there's a gap here. It's okay, it will fill in over time. And sometimes you might have to trim back. So in the case of these two boxwoods, they're very close to each other and they're on both sides. So I do like to kind of take a glance to see what height they're at. And this one's a little bit higher than that one, and partly because of where it's planted, but at the same time, that just tells me I'm going to take the height of this one down a little bit more to make it a little bit more symmetrical. And that's okay because we have plenty of foliage to work with here. So this one's going to be a little bit more dense than the other one. But over time, they'll start to shape up and look even more like each other. All right, let's check out another one. Now here we have a really small one. And on these you might wonder, do I even need to trim them? And I would say to you, yes, but don't trim them substantially. So I'm just gonna take a few of the tips off, because every time that you cut a tip, that helps to promote the growth. It helps to bush the plant out a little bit, and this will just help to continue to shape the boxwood, and it will help it to grow in the form that you want. So most of mine I like to prune into a round shape. I'm actually thinking about these two here, because I have one on the other side of this bench as well. I'm thinking about shaping these two into more of a conical shape, but right now I just want to kind of trim them up a little bit so that they're good for the season. And then next year, when they have a little bit more to them, the density will be better for me to start making them into a different shape. And you do want to look at these from all angles when you first start this kind of thing. And once you start to get used to it, you can kind of get a good feel for how they're going to turn out. I think the rain is coming. All right, we'll try and get this last one done over here. We'll be fast. So this one here is right up against this bowl. And I think I'm gonna probably have to move this bowl a little bit because this one's so close to it. It will end up with a divot in the side of the boxwood, or I'll have to move the boxwood back a little further. At least over the next few years, that's what's gonna happen. I don't know about you, but I don't mind a little bit of rain when I'm working. It's probably not the best to trim boxwood when it's wet outside because they can have a tendency to get fungal diseases. But I don't know when I'm going to trim these if I don't trim these. And I have a whole lot more to do. Well, I just saw some lightning besides thunder, so we're going to go ahead and go inside and take cover. We'll try and finish this video later. Well, 20 minutes later, and what you're going to hear is the birds chirping instead of the thunder rolling. So we're back outside and let's get started again. So another tip about boxwood pruning. Yes, you shouldn't do it when it's wet, so do as I say, not as I do, right? But it is good to do like what I'm doing right now, which is the timing of it, as well as when during the day you do it. So I'm doing it right now in the evening, which means that the sun is not strong, and so they'll have a chance to kind of recover from this small clip in a way that will allow for less browning of the cuts. So if you clip these and it's sunny and hot outside, the cuts on them will kind of transpire and release moisture, and they'll get brown edges on them. It will grow out, so it's okay to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. It might look a little bit less pleasant than if you do it when it's in the shade. So this one's kind of hiding underneath of this hosta, which gives it quite a bit more shade. And it looks like it's in pretty good shape. I'm just going to pick a couple small spots to trim some tips. And again, the tip trimming will just help it bush out a little bit. I had already pruned these a little bit earlier this year in terms of just getting rid of some of the winter damage, because in the winter time, you know, when it gets cold, they can actually lose too much water and then they brown up. So I did trim some of my boxwoods back earlier, and now we're just trying to prune for shape. So this here's another one that I trimmed some of the winter damage, and you can see it's finally started to push out some new growth. That's this really bright chartreuse foliage here. And I didn't really prune for shape before, so now I'm just going to trim around and tidy it up. Again, as if you have a lot of trimming to do, that's another good thing about the way that I'm holding these, is the weight just kind of drags down towards the ground and you don't feel like you're holding it up with your wrists. Again, looking at it from multiple angles is a good way to go. Sometimes if you clip at different angles, that can really help, because otherwise you can end up with growth that's just in one direction, whether it's sideways, like if you keep clipping this direction, or if you only clip down. So it's good to take a look at it. But again, that's part of why I prefer clipping downwards, is because it keeps the growth all going out and not in strange directions. All right, that one looks good. Hey, you guys, check it out. Peekaboo, my dahlia sees you. Isn't that exciting? I'm gonna get a bloom. Woohoo! Okay, so this one definitely has a little bit more pruning to do. And after I prune this, because this is less of a ball shape and a little bit more squarish, a little bit wider. So after I do a little pruning on this one, I'm going to step back and check the height of it against the one that's all the way at the other side. Again, I do this for symmetry. And one of the other things that you'll notice about boxwoods is if they are planted in a way that there's something up against them, that part won't grow. It will stop and it will keep growing in the other direction. So you do want to keep that in mind when you're finding a spot in the yard for them. I'm going a little deeper on this side because I noticed that the ball doesn't have much growth on this side. So just trying to make it a little bit more even. And as long as you're not trimming back into the brown wood, you still have lots of leaf growth like this on top, you should be fine. Boxwoods are really tough. Okay, now I'm just going to stand back and look at the height and make sure they look okay. This one still does look taller. Part of it's because the yard does slope a bit, but I'm still going to cut some more off the top here. And some people actually like to lay down a tarp or something to catch their clippings. I don't do that. I let them just fall and drop to the ground. You know, it's just another little bit of mulch. It'll break down over time. Yeah, people might think it doesn't look that pretty, but that's just my method. You find what works for you. If you like a super tidy garden, probably a tarp or a drop cloth is the way to go to catch your clippings, and just putting it around the bottom. But I also find that, you know, over time, as they turn brown, you can just kind of work them into the mulch, or the animals work them into the mulch, so it's no big deal. All right, we got some more to do. Let's go. Okay, so these both look fairly decent, but they do need a little tidying up. Just, again, a little bit of shaping. Now the next ones that I shape are going to be my older ones, and I will show you how on those I deal with older wood. Yeah, they're starting to get some on these. As they get bigger, it happens where you see this really dense hardwood. But this one's still okay, probably for another year, but I will have to start do a little bit of more specific pruning probably next year. Just to help rejuvenate. Looks pretty good. Let me go do the other, and then we'll check out how they look together. So I like to start at the top. That's my favorite place to start, just kind of to level it off and give height, and then work downwards the sides from there. Alright, I think this one's a little taller than the other one. Check it out. Yeah. Come back in the top here. And you'll see people like to sometimes use electric clippers on boxwoods. I find that I have more control with the hand shears, and I also feel like they give a cleaner cut. But again, that's a personal preference thing. Okay, let's go check out my other ones. So you can see these are all fleshed out with nice new growth, and very fluffy and ready for their trim, their haircut for the year. So on these have been around for a good, over 10 years. And so they have some more significant growth and have been trimmed many times. So I'm going to show you on these a pruning technique to help open up older boxwoods when they become really dense. So the way you can tell that there's lots of old growth on something and that they're very dense is, you know, it's holding this up. These are fairly heavy. I mean, not super heavy, but it's not splaying open or anything. And I think a lot of people get afraid of doing some of the pruning that I'm going to show you how to do next. They're afraid it won't grow back. But literally, this is a really good way to help the health of your plant, because otherwise they will be more prone to like some fungal diseases or other issues and die back. So right here you can see I'm starting to get some new growth, but it's not as bushy as over here, and that's because it's very, very dense. So if you take a look really close at this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a spot and look inside, and you can see this is a very thick branch right here. So I'm going to clip it off, and you might say, oh my god, that's so much, but watch. Okay, I've clipped it off. You can't hardly even tell that I did anything, but what that's going to do is just allow a little bit more air circulation and allow for the branch to begin branching out again and have smaller, less thick branches, and so your plant's just going to be healthier and live longer. So I'm not going to do this whole bush because otherwise, and all of these bushes, because otherwise the video would get really long. But I'll show you a little bit about how I start this, and then I'll show you another couple of those clips to help open up the interior. So again, I just start with the top, kind of shearing it to where it looks nice, and I'm getting a nice even cut. And it's important to do this. Why? Because you'll start to get some of these that will pop up, and you'll be able to clip them. Again, it also helps with some of that clippings, with getting them down in and away from the bush. Okay, so I think you get the gist of that. Let me show you a little bit more of the pruning of the dense areas. I still feel like this spot over here is a little bit dense. So let me take a look. Yep, this part right here is causing it. So I'm just gonna kind of look in here and see what we got. I have one that's kind of in the middle. That's the one that I'm gonna get at right here. Hopefully you can see that. All right, and that's just gonna let that fluff right up. Again, you can hardly tell I did anything. And it's just gonna really help with the health of the plant. Well guys, I'm starting to glisten. My glasses are fogging up, so I'm gonna finish this up on my own. Otherwise the video would be really long. But once I finish this up, what we'll do is we'll give you a pan so you can see what it looks like after it's all trimmed and pretty. See you next time.